Welcome back to the Diabetes Remission Roadmap podcast. And today, Brian is joining me and a special guest. I think this is the first time Brian is here to interview a guest. So we're all grateful to have him here. But our guest today is Ty Gipson. He's the host of the podcast, No Options with Ty Gipson. He is also a speaker and mindset advocate whose message is built around one core principle: there are no options when it comes to doing what it takes. After facing life-altering challenges that forced him to either grow or die, Ty learned firsthand that progress comes from discipline, ownership, and action, not excuses. Today, he speaks to leaders, athletes, and everyday people about mental toughness, resilience, and choosing to grow when you have no options. Folks, this is going to be a special one. Ty, thanks so much for joining us.
And I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk to you.
All right. So this is normally a podcast where we talk about type 2 diabetes, and your story actually involves type 1 diabetes, but I think your path and your approach to mindset is going to be so valuable for our listeners. So would you mind sharing?
Not at all.
It feels like a miracle. So fill us in on how you've gotten here today.
Yeah. Again, thank you guys for having me on. And you're right. Type 1, type 2, at the end of the day, we got to have a positive mind, right? We got to have a mind in the right place to get through these things. But my story goes back from way back, and I'm going to age myself a little bit here because in the late 70s, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. As we know, the technology back then was a little bit different. Struggled through that for a couple of years, and then it got I had such brittle diabetes that I had to they found a specialist. At the time, it was at Houston, Texas, where there was a specialist there, and they put me in the research floor, and they put me on a syringe. They were really researching a syringe pump that they were using for dialysis. I'm sorry, for chemotherapy at the time. And they put insulin in it, and they put it on some of us to test to see about, instead of taking the shots, obviously getting insulin throughout the day. And so it was really a pretty new technology. There were pumps before, but this was the new age of the pumps coming forward. And so I did a lot of research with that. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't a perfect, everything wasn't perfect. We had a lot of challenges and back and forth, but we got through it. But I was raised, though, in a fact where my dad was one of those that kind of said, hey, dust off, everything will be okay. Put a Band-Aid on it, boy, you'll be all right, kind of thing. And at the time, being raised that way, I always thought, man, that's harsh, right? Or kind of tough. But now I look back and I'm very thankful, because I think what he was putting me through and the way he was really raising me helped me for the path ahead, because the path got really pretty rocky throughout in the medical world for my health for the next several years. But moving on, though, I had this different pumps. I went from that first pump was 1 pound 9 ounces, so it was like a brick. I had a brick on my side. It was massive, and but I still played sports, and I was still a kid, right? I was still a boy and played all the sports and did all the things, and so they didn't treat me any different. My parents kept me just thinking in that mindset, right? Just keep going. And so over the years, different pumps, different challenges, but I had a lot of close calls where having to go to the emergency room in the middle of the night because my blood sugars were out through the roof, or what, passing out. So it was just really challenging times. But and then let's fast forward. I was 30 years old. I was just feeling really hard. This was after college. I was on my career, and just extremely tired. So I went in, and the doctor said, hey, your kidneys are failing, Ty. And I said, good Lord. As much medical experience as I had, I just was tired of going through the doctors and the hospitals, and it just felt like it was all the time. But anyway, so we talked about it. He said, you have such brittle diabetes, though. He said, if we just get a kidney, you're just gonna continue to go through kidneys because of your brittle diabetes. He said, but there is a doctor in Baltimore, Maryland, at the University of Maryland, that's doing research, and they're doing kidney pancreas transplants. And he said, but here's the deal: we got to find out if you're a candidate for it. but he said, I really believe that you would be. So we flew out to Baltimore, did the test, and sure enough, I was a candidate for this surgery. Now, as you guys know, I can receive a kidney from a living donor, but a pancreas comes from a deceased donor. So my mother at the time was 60 years old. And she said, Ty, she said, no, if I can give you a kidney, I want to do it. God gave us two, and I think one of them's yours, right? And if all works out, I want to do that. So we went through testing with her. Come to find out, she was a match for me, which was great, and I was very thankful of that. But now we're on a waiting list. So I go back. I'm working. I continue to work because I did not want to go on dialysis because we heard that if you go on dialysis, it takes a little bit more time for the organs to react to so less chance of rejection. So all that, I was really just trying not to go on dialysis. About 8 months into it, I finally hit a wall. I was going through the day where it was hard. I would come home at probably 5:30, try to eat a small dinner, and then go to bed at 6:30 just to try to get through the day. It was really hard. So not a very quality lifestyle for sure. And then, so I went in, I finally hit a wall, and I said, I can't go anymore. So they put the stent in. I was getting ready for dialysis. That Sunday night, Super Bowl Sunday, and it was like midnight. The phone rings, and it's a Baltimore area code. And I'm like, oh my God. So immediately I got really nervous. But here's one of the reasons I was really nervous. They had been 4 of these surgeries, and only 2 of them were successful. And I didn't know that night when I got the call, I didn't know. I have a 6-year-old daughter. So I left that night not knowing really if I was going to come back to her, I didn't know what was going to happen. I had no idea because they really didn't know. I didn't know, but I know I had to make a choice that the quality of life on dialysis and kidney failure was not the lifestyle that I wanted to live. I didn't feel like I could take care of her. I didn't feel like there would just be any quality of life. So I chose to take the surgery and let's see what we could do, right? And so sure enough, we get the call. I call my mother. We all take off to Baltimore, mobilize. It's like the movies, right? Everybody's running, but then you just sit and wait. We get to the hospital, and I'm in the center operation room. They have the organ they have here, and then they have my mother. And I want to say here, because this is always someone donated an organ, and and I'm very thankful. I've never have gotten to meet the family, but I will say in a tragedy for their family, but there was a small glimpse of hope, and it has saved my life. So I always say, I'm thankful, and I hope people, if there's questions about organ donation, please consider it because it saves a lot of lives and changes a lot of things. But I also want to say through this, we all deal with stuff. And I want to encourage people on the other side of whatever wall we're looking at today, whatever we woke up to today, whether it's relationships or it's something in the career, it's just personal, whatever it is, there's hope on the other side because, man, because of that donor and because I received that organ, after that surgery, I was able to open a business. I was able to get married. I was able to adopt my second daughter. And I'm very thankful for that. But I want to encourage people that whatever that wall looks like to you, on the other side of that, it's worth the fight because there's hope and there's a lot of great things ahead. But again, the surgery was successful. My mom was waiting for me when I came out of the recovery room. And it was I felt better immediately, but it was a really hard year because I was on 65 pills a day.
Yeah, we are two pharmacists, and that's probably a near record for myself. I won't speak for Brian, but that is a lot of medication to manage.
That was the point right there. Trying to manage it was the challenging part. And you guys probably know better than me, though. A lot of anti-rejection meds, But then the other half, I think, were ones that were just the side effects to the anti-rejection meds and the other things that were going on. Uh, Luckily, now I'm down to about 30 pills a day, which is much better. But I still take a lot of medication. But it was a really hard year just to manage that, because you think about it, your body's got two new organs, taking all these meds, trying to regulate your body. It was tough. But I will tell you, after that, about that first year, it was amazing. It really was. It was just a great lifestyle. It was the way I hadn't felt in years. Because you think about it, I was no longer a diabetic. I had lived my life as a diabetic, and now I'm living. My body is producing insulin. My pancreas now produces insulin, which was amazing. So I lived. It was wonderful. Now I couldn't. I was on very strict dietary diet. There was a lot of diets and things I had to watch, and foods, and that was a lifestyle change for me. But it was a very great life. I'll tell you that. For 12 years now, organs don't last forever, as you guys know. For 12 years, I didn't have diabetes, and that was great. Now, my mother's kidney lasted me for 20 years.
Wow.
And so in 2019, end of 2019, my kidney started failing again. But I mentioned I had opened a business, and I had, 45 employees at this time. We had a great business that we've grown and was doing very well. And so I was immediately put on dialysis, which is what I never wanted to really go on. But I will tell you this: if you know somebody going through dialysis, man, I always say, just say a quick prayer, because when I talk about hope, that's a hopeless place.
Yeah,
In a lot of ways.
you're tethered to an appointment 3 days a week for several hours. You don't feel good before you go. You don't feel good right after.
Feel worse.
Brian and I have
Yeah.
seen countless people go through that experience, and so I think and you're not even done with your story. You have more. There's.
I'm telling you, man, it gets better. It's getting better. Y'all just
Okay.
take. I'm sorry, I'm long-winded here, but the story gets
Oh,
better.
it's okay.
I promise.
I'm gonna replay this from my 7-year-old. He forgot his homework today, and he was feeling pretty bad about himself. So I want to give him a little perspective later today. But please continue.
No, but it's such a hope, because you're waiting on someone. Hope someone donates an organ that matches you. And if no one's ever been in a dialysis center, there's just these chairs, these recliner chairs, and you go in and get hooked up, and you go through. But there were several people while I was going there that, we got to be friends, right? And then I'll never forget a couple of days that I was going. A few of them didn't. There was one that didn't show up, and we finally found out that he didn't make it. You're waiting on organs, or you're hoping your body can fight through the wait, kind of thing. So it's just a place that I always think about, and luckily I get to drive by it every day, and it always makes me really think about the people that work there are amazing, and the people. It's just a place that you always want to think about, right? Anyway, so I'm going through dialysis. My sister now has matched me to be my new kidney, right? So we're excited about that. And we're going through all the testing. And then right at the end, they come back and say something with the filtration of my sister's kidney would not allow us to do the transplant. So my wife had seen me just really declining very rapidly. And I would go 3 days a week from 4:30 in the morning to 9. And then I would go to my office and act like nothing was wrong. Because a lot of my employees didn't even know I was going through this, because I had to come in and rally the troops and try to keep people going. But it goes back to what we talked about earlier. I was raised where you just dust off and keep going. So I still had that mentality. And then, so I'm going through that. And one weekend we run down to, my wife had an extended family reunion, and she said, we were there, and she knew I didn't really like to talk about my story, but she said, "Hey, do you mind, Ty, telling your story?" And I said, "If they want to hear my problems, I guess I'll tell them my story, right?" And so I tell the story, and on the way home that night, like 4 or 5 of them text me and said, "Hey, thanks for sharing. We're gonna sign up to be organ donors."
Mm.
And I thought that was the moment where it clicked and said, "How selfish am I if I can simply tell my story and help others?" And so that's where I finally just started, you know what? I need to share this more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how this all started. But then, so again, my sister was lined up. Her kidneys weren't ended up being not the ones that I was going to be able to get. And my wife says, "Hey, I'm going to go in and donate my kidney, even though I'm a different blood type." And so she goes in and and she calls me and she's absolutely just crying. And I'm like, "What is wrong?" And she says, "Ty," she says, "I match you perfectly."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "What?" I mean, I had no idea. Come to find out, I think she just forgot her blood type this whole time, and but
Sounds like my
but
wife, something she
but
would do.
whatever it was, whatever that was, she was a perfect match. So 6 weeks later, I received my wife's kidney, and man, I'm telling you, life has been absolutely amazing. I feel better today than I ever have. It's just been an amazing story. So I say all that because of me being able to tell my story, and then we were able just to sell our business about a year ago. And I was telling my wife when all this came up, I said, "What am I going to do with this extra time?" And she says, "I know exactly what you're going to do with your extra time." She said, "You remember you said that when if I can, because I would always say different spills that I were in, I'd be laying on this bed thinking about, am I going to make it through this?" And I always said, "Just get me through this, and I'll do whatever I can do to help." And she said, "Well, you need to go help." And so that's why I'm here today. So I go around and speak about encouraging people. And if I can get, if it relates to one person, it's worth every bit of my time. I'm not going to relate to everybody, but what I'm hoping is that I can just push people through whatever it is they're going through.
Wow. Like Brian and I have stood here speechless because your story, there were so many moments where it would have been easy to give up, to blame others, to ask why me, but you kept going. You kept trying. I want to joke that the biggest trial was overcoming your wife for getting her blood type, but that's something I can only relate to how my wife would do it. But I think
Yeah.
you're gonna touch a lot of people today because whether it's type 1, type 2, people are facing kidney problems. They're facing the prospect of, will I make it to another day? If you're in a dialysis center, yeah, that sort of attrition of who's going to make it to the next day.
Right.
And what this is just such an appealing, your mindset's so appealing because you might look at your dad and say, wow, that guy was a jerk, but he was preparing you for this. Life is beautiful and it's great, but it's also can be really hard and tragic and
Right.
unfair.
It absolutely can. It can. And sometimes, Corey, people say, how'd you get through this? What'd you do? And I spent some time really thinking through kind of what did I go through? What was I thinking? And I hate the word positive thinking because it's such just a blanket. What does that mean? And and my fear was I wanted to go talk about this, but I don't want to be a motivational speaker. I want someone to be able to take something away from this. And I always said it was just a positive mindset. And I came up with three quick. If you got, I want to share this
Please
with the
do.
audience
Yeah.
real quick.
Yeah.
Step one, I always say, is grow or die. That's what we do, right? And when I say grow or die, I don't mean death. Death is death. Death is your dream, your purpose, your goals, whatever that looks like for you. And then number two is hope or despair, and that's how we think. Are we going to be hopeful, or are we going to be that victim? Why me? Like you mentioned, why was I the one that got chose to have all these kidney problems or juvenile diabetes or my tires were flat? Why me? Why me? And think positive. That's how we think. And then humor or drama. And that's how we talk, right? Because we go around and we talk to people, we say things, and even talking to internally, right? How are we telling ourselves? But how we talk and how we think and how we do, if you put those three in line, if you do those small steps and you think about those three steps, it will align your mind and to be a positive thinker. And that's really how I think of it. And I got little post-it notes with this written on it all over the place because we're human. It still happens. It's not like you get over that finish line and you never have that problem again. We deal with them all the time. And So this is a great reminder to me. It's just, my grow or die. What's my why? My wife and my family and kids. That's why I'm fighting, right? That's why I want to grow. And then our hope is again how we think, and then humor, drama is how we talk. And again, if we just think those three little steps, it'll force your mind to be positive. I hope that those things help me a lot, and I hope it can help others just to take smaller bites, because the old saying of that 1%. If we can just get 1% better each day, and a lot of this stuff is scientific. In fact, I'm diving deep into this stuff right now as much as I can with the neuro, how the brain works, and there's a lot of studies out there that showing how much positive thinking and the neural pathways and all that stuff that really make a difference in the way we think, and then how it affects what we do. I hope something like that can help others, because it surely has helped me.
Yeah. I see Brian over there. I think you're speaking, if there was a second language Brian speaks, it's mindset, positivity, and 1% gains. So Brian, I feel
Oh,
like
that's
you
awesome.
wanted to jump in there.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Ty, for sharing such an intimate, personal story. It reminds me of so many people that I have encountered in my career, like in their 30s on dialysis, that just looked like they were, like you said, in despair, hopeless, and likely a lot of them did not make it. I know several people in their 30s that died, type 1 diabetes or just high
Even
blood
type
pressure that
even type
they
2 diabetes. Yeah.
even type 2, yeah, but
Yeah.
that just did not have the same mindset and approach that you did. Maybe not even the same luck too of finding kidney matches. And when you said your wife was going to donate, I have heard of one kidney donation sparking like a cascade of just a crazy amount of like donations. So you can definitely do that. I heard that on a podcast one time. But yeah, there's so much I want to just dig into here. One, I learned something. I didn't really know they were doing pancreas transplants. So that's funny. Did you know that, Corey?
Yeah,
They've done
on the
pancreas transplants?
periphery, but regard,
So
yeah,
that's
very, very cool science happening, but yeah.
It's they've been doing it. They've been doing it, but I still get questions. I laugh. I was at a several years after the surgery. I was at a conference speaking, and it was some doctors there, and they're like, "We've never even heard. Are you sure you had a pancreas?" I said, "I promise I had a
I'm
pancreas."
telling you, I've never
So
heard
it's
of
relatively
someone
new.
getting a pancreas transplant. That just makes me wonder why like more people with type 1 don't get them. I guess they're like hard to match, and obviously, like you said, they require organ donation from a
Yeah,
deceased donor. It was really eye-opening to me. That's even a possibility, and I think that's cool. Definitely, I think you getting through type 1 diabetes back in the 70s before, it sounds like you were one of the first person to even have like an insulin type pump, which is pretty cool.
yeah,
That is
no,
technology now that is transformed incredibly to linking up with people's phones. And they basically have pancreases that are external synced with and maybe that's why it's not been explored more because you look at the risk of a transplant surgery versus now what's the technology we have available. It's just so much more advanced than when you were going through this. They're like, let's just give them a pancreas because that's going to give them a better chance of living
you're
than
right.
now we can sync your now it's probably just going to do it itself. Honestly, the technology is so advanced that like you have a monitor on you, then you have a insulin pump with you, and it's just like feedback and it's adjusting the insulin based on your blood sugar. So that's probably why we haven't heard of pancreas transplants now that we think about it. I want to fast forward back to what you said about the hope or humor or what's the
Humor,
humor
drama,
or humor or drama?
drama.
Yes, yes, humor or drama. Thank you. Can you give us an example of what that talk looks like, the humor? How
Yeah, I
would you
mean,
frame something as humorous versus drama?
the thing is, and I think that's with every day, right? And a lot of this is, I mentioned internal too. Sometimes you just got to say, you know what? And I'll do this a lot. I'll say, you know what? I'm lucky. This, in fact, I have a quote right here that this is my obstacles into opportunities. And a lot of times I look at it as in the humor way is I've got to say, you know what? I was given this to be able to do what I'm doing to help others. Or I just got it when I'm talking to myself, I'm saying, this is awesome. it'd be something that most people go, what the heck is he saying? This is an opportunity now that I get to do, or I get to do it versus I have to do it kind of thing. And so I'm always just trying to rephrase it. But the main thing is where this really comes up is where in conversation. I do this a lot. And in fact, my friends will tell me this. You make it sound like it's something that you're going to enjoy to do. Hey, I get to go back to Houston and I got to go see the doctors because I'm doing this and this now. And they're like, what? But in my mind, I've got to talk through, and I get to talk like I'm able to do something versus I have to. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. But when you're talking it, again, it's that little bit positivity that we talk will help, because it goes back to that. You start talking you get into that poor pitiful me. I have to go back to Houston. I'm having to do this, or I have to take shots every day. I have to take 30 pills a day. I I find a way. I find a way and find the positivity. I get to take 30 pills a day because I get to be with my kids, and I get to see my wife, and I'm here. Every day's a bonus day because I get to go. I get Thank God for the medications that I get to take to stay alive. It's just, and that's a long-winded answer, Brian, but it's just how I twist things into we get to. So
Yeah,
versus we have to.
Yeah.
definitely. Honestly, I'm definitely on board with that. It sounds like that's gratitude in action right there.
Absolutely.
I preach this to people all the time. Parents like me, they're always saying, "Hey, I'm so busy." I'm like, just you're blessed. You're blessed. You have a lot of things you get to do with your kids. Yes, you're busy, but you're also very blessed if you have these, because your problems, someone would love to have your problems. Someone would love
That's
to
right.
have someone that has terrible health would love to have your problems. Someone
That's
would
right.
love to have my problems. So I know you're talking Corey's language here with humor. Corey, what did you want to say or ask?
I think that you hit the nail on the head here is like you clearly recognize this gift that you were given and you're taking every moment. You've built businesses, you're speaking to others, you're inspiring. And I just like, what are we on this planet to do but to serve others? And I think
Right.
you're taking this opportunity. And you mentioned the term grow or die. And that makes me think that the tools for blood sugar, improving blood sugar, they're out there. The information is out there. You have had this incredible surgery that has given you new leases on life, and you've taken all of that and made the most of it. And Brian and I have seen this in our experience as pharmacists that you can give two people the same medicine, the same workout plan, the same diet plan, all the same tools, but their mindset will totally determine where they take it. And I'm going to get a little personal here, but I had a sister with type 1 diabetes. I say had because she passed away at 40 years old. She had every opportunity. She didn't have a transplant, but she was given a pump. She was given all of these tools, and she didn't have the grow mindset. And unfortunately, the complications led to her passing away at 40 years old. Every individual is different. We all have our own challenges. And but to those listening, the mind is a muscle that you have to flex. We talk about muscle for blood sugar, but you got to work the mind out. And little things every day, that's all we get sometimes. Brian and I have three little kids. We don't have time for long-winded, hour-long meditation retreats to find our purpose. Little note cards, like you're saying, little tips to keep us going. And that I think why it speaks so much to me and hopefully our listeners.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I'm sorry to hear about your sister. There's a lot of that out there that it really just, and I tell you, you mentioned it, we live in a tough world. And sometimes it's our mind, when you think about it, we have the tools that we need right now. It don't cost a dime. I always tell people, all you need is a mirror. You got to go look in that mirror and make the choice that you're going to be the one, right? Because we're the ones that have to make that decision whether we're going to be positive about it or we're going to take this thing and let it pull us down. And so I really believe it's just, and you mentioned it, it's a muscle that we've got to continue. And I think it gets overlooked so much because you talk about going to the gym, and you don't go to the gym one time and come back and you feel like, oh my gosh, look what I did. You do it over time and you get results. And it's the brain is the same thing. We got to continue to have small wins in the positive thinking, and that you're building that muscle in your mind, so that now when you do, and one of you guys brought it up, when you do run into this adversity, you're equipped to handle it with a positive mindset that you've developed. I just would encourage people to continue to push through. And I'll tell you guys another really cool thing about my story was that 6-year-old daughter that I left that morning not knowing. I was able to walk down the aisle last month, so
My
it's
gosh,
pretty cool.
incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Congrats.
So I'm every day is a bonus day to me, man. I'm just glad to be here, and I do try to just encourage people, but more importantly, let them know they have everything they need to get through whatever they're facing. I'm not showing you anything new. I'm just encouraging people what we already have. And then if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I just try to keep encouraging people and put your arms around them, because you never know what everybody's going through. That's why I tell people all the time, you don't know what the person in the cube next to you or the lady in the line in front of you. If you can share or if you can help, reach out and help people. Everybody has a story, and I hope everybody can share their story, because you never know how much your story is going to help others.
Well,
Yeah.
I think your story, I don't know about you, Brian, I'm going to be sending you a bill for a new wall that I'm going to be running through as soon as we get off this call. I feel like I'm ready to run through a brick wall.
Well, that's good. That's great.
I'm kidding. I will not send you the bill for that. My kids have already destroyed my house enough. That's on me. So uh, your story, I know I can see it on Brian's face. I know if you're listening, you've been touched, you've been inspired by Ty's story. Ty, we're going to wrap things up here. And before we go, we're going to share all of your contact information in the show notes. You have a wonderful podcast that we enjoyed. You're all over social media. Those links will be in our show notes. Your website's in our show notes. You do motivational speaking. You just did a motivational speech. I don't know if you realize this. You just did a motivational podcast speech for us. So thank you very much. Any final parting words for our listeners as we part ways today and as we wrap up our show?
And I'm going to repeat something I just said, though. We've been equipped exactly with what we need. You've got to know that you have what it takes. And I would encourage you to not underestimate what you can do. That wall may seem really high, but you have everything you need to get over it. I would encourage people again to put your arms around each other, and let's get through this world together, because it's a tough one out there, but it's also an amazing place. We got some amazing people, but we just need to get out and share each other's stories and help each other out. So thank you guys for listening to me.
Quick question, because you remind me of something. We all have everything we need in us. Have you ever taken green onions and just put them in water? Like a green onion you've used. Have you ever put the green onion back in water and put it by sunlight?
No.
It just grows back. Doesn't even need soil. It's already got everything it needs in it to grow again. So I think that's a pretty cool analogy there that,
I like that.
yeah, the green onion
like that.
analogy that we
Yeah.
all have everything we need. And for me, a big thing is you're right, grow or die. Whenever we stop growing, that's when we die. Could be
That's right.
just internally die. Our purpose could die. And so, yeah, you've definitely inspired, I'm sure, a lot of listeners to share and just to keep going on, get through their tough times. So thank you for being with us.
You're so welcome. And I just posted something that it was one from my dad, but it just says simply, quit complaining and let's go. And sometimes that's just what we need to do, right?
Yeah.
We just need to get up and go.
Speaking my language, Ty. Thanks so much. As I said, we'll link to everything in the show notes. Ty's story is incredible. If you've been inspired by this, please let us know. We'll connect you. You can find him on the internet. And thank you so much for listening to the Diabetes Remission Roadmap podcast. Brian, any last words?
Share a story if you know someone that needs to hear it.
Right
Share
on.
the episode with them.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks again, Ty.